Moving to the classroom now, and there's been a massive surge in foreign teachers being used to plug vacancies as schools struggle to attract qualified British applicants. Overseas applications for teacher training have doubled this year following a recruitment drive in countries like Nigeria and India offering £10,000 payments for teachers to come to the UK. Experts say Brits are turning away from the profession due to poor pay, high workloads and disruptive behaviour. Meanwhile, school leaders are calling for a double-digit pay rise, for all teachers. The National Association of Head Teachers says at least a 10% increase is needed to counter the recruitment and retention crisis. But the government says school salaries should return to a more reasonable level after the pandemic. I mean, the first thing I'd say there is that we are in a different time now in terms of inflation. So the point at which unions could ask for double-digit pay rises and enjoy broad public support, I think it'll be more of a challenge now. Having said that, having been a teacher, it is one of the most exhausting jobs in the world. I used to finish teaching and get on the road to perform to, like, hen-dos who'd be throwing inflatable God knows what at me, and I would think, what a relief.
Yeah.
You know, what a relief to get on the road. So it is exhausting. And I suppose that the question is the marketplace suggests that they're not being paid enough, right? If you cannot recruit locally, the job maybe isn't rewarding at a level it should be. If you're having to throw 10 grand at overseas applicant, the evidence is there that perhaps, you know, it will be difficult. It will be a difficult sell for the government. But perhaps they need to carry on increasing teacher pay.
It always seems to me when I've spoken to people who run schools or teachers themselves that there are certain areas of the country that find it much easier to recruit than other areas. And so obviously we all know you get some London waiting, whatever it might be. So you get a different, you get different salaries for teachers. But then there will be pockets of the country, and I just worry that if you're trying to recruit, from overseas and then send those teachers somewhere, that's very, very rural with very little infrastructure, with very little for those teachers, how can they assimilate? How can they make a new life in some of those areas where we've got real problems recruiting? So it seems to me that we might be trying to force square pegs into round holes.
And can you imagine as well, if somebody that's coming from a really conflicted area, then they go to a dodgy inner city comp, they'll be thinking, what have I walked into?
Take me back to Gaza.
Yeah. How does this work with the visas? A government's supposed to be reducing the amount of visas we give out to people, and we're going to ask people to come over here and not bring their family with them.
Exactly.
They only pretend to reduce the number of visas they give out, but actually they give more and more and more and more. So this will fit well into their game plan.
Well, they have the system whereby any industry that has a shortage of workers in that particular, gets the special visa
But
system.
isn't that actually what it was supposed to do in terms of having control of your immigration policies? You could decide which professions you had. Previously in Europe, it was complete freedom of movement. Now you can offer visas. Whether the amount we're offering is in line with what people expected when they voted for Brexit is a completely different issue.
But we shouldn't need to import so many people. First it was doctors, then it was nurses, then it was care workers, it's fruit pickers. All of these perfectly reasonable professions in this country, we seem unable to recruit British workers for our British jobs.
But is it to do with pay, or are we lazy as a country? I mean, that's what I'm wondering.
There's an argument
and meanwhile, we have young people sitting on benefits, long-term benefits with mental health issues.
850,000 16 to 24-year-olds are not in education, they're not working, they're not even claiming any benefits. They're just doing nothing. That's our problem. But if we've got a shortage, then you have to go abroad. I'm not against this idea.
But you're absolutely right, and it's 800,000 NEETs, as they used to be called, not in any sort of employment. And it's more than 5 million on some sort of long-term sick or benefit. And that is completely untenable in the long term. But none of the politicians, that's such a complicated issue to work out that we end up talking about visas for teachers, which is a symptom of a much bigger
It's
problem.
not acceptable because you can't keep paying for everybody's benefits. You can't. It's not sustainable to have these people with calamitous mental health outcomes where they just don't work. Young people need to be working. They need to be doing something with their lives. It's not sustainable to keep importing people when we need the people here to be working.
By the way, you're talking about professions that we allow in because there's a shortage. There's a long list of these professions, and my favourite on this list is apparently we have a national shortage of artists.
Artists and architects.
You can get a visa.
Florists and ballet dancers and all sorts.
We need ballet dancers. The ballet dancer shortage must be plugged.